Hey guys, here we are at part 3 of the story, where the Toads raise Naruto to replace Minato as their summoner. Trained as a sage, Naruto will strike out to find his fellow Jinchuriki. Just not in the way you would expect. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe button. Now, let's jump right in. Goddamn it, a heat. How do you know this kind of shit? Language, Hidan. Kakuzu wasn't usually one for jokes, but the big payday in his immediate future was enough to lift even his spirits. Sasori and Zetsu still had to find their target. It wasn't you and me, and I doubt even Naruto and Deidara are ambitious enough to go for two-tailed beasts in a row. Or at least not skilled enough to succeed in the attempt. That left Itachi and Kisame as the logical choice. I'll take my large sum of cash after the ceiling. You guys made another bet? I'm almost afraid to guess who Hidan picked, mumbled Naruto. I put my faith in you two pansies, and you let me down. Do you know how much I owe Kakuzu now? A large sum of cash. That's a large sum, shouted the silver-haired immortal, though his pink eyes were the only discernible feature through the projection technique. Hidan's loud ranting was almost enough to drown out the pain groans of the dying man in front of them, but Roshi's pain had practically become background noise at this point. A large sum of cash? Asked Deidara. One could almost see the eyebrow being raised. Did you even bother to count this large sum of money? Yeah, of course I did. It was just more than I could count though. Hidan trailed off before defending his monetary prowess as loudly as he could. It was more than 20 though. I ran out of fingers and toes. Well, that is a lot, replied Zetsu earnestly. You're both morons. Say, how would you deal with an opponent hiding in the bottom of a lake? Zetsu's white side decided to change the topic towards something hopefully beneficial. You found the three tails? Any snarky responses were stopped dead in their tracks by the voice of pain. Why yes, but the dumb turtle is at the bottom of a lake, we can't reach it, stammered Zetsu. Overwatering is nasty way to go. Poison won't work on the beast, and my selection of submersible puppets is limited, added Sasori. I see, said Pain, shocking the other 8 members of Akatsuki. Konan never seemed surprised by Pain and the others were generally unflappable, but Akatsuki's leader had only ever responded to failure with annoyance or anger. Zetsu. Use that technique to remove the obstruction to Akatsuki's goals. Are you sure? A look from the ringed eyes of God answered his question. Understood. What technique are you talking about? Are you keeping secrets from me? From me? The others ignored Zetsu, who continued to argue with himself for the rest of the ceiling. Roshi collapsed to the floor, and Akatsuki dismissed themselves after making sure that their leader had nothing more to say. Sasori opened his eyes for the first time in 3 days, or rather Hiruko did, since Sasori had been unable to move the puppet armor while sealing the tailed beast. So what is this technique that will help us capture the three tails? I'd like to know that too. Zetsu's upper body emerged from a tree, and while his white side seemed genuinely irked, his black half didn't seem to care. You'll see. Zetsu split down the middle into 2 different beings, each a different color. Sasori had never seen Zetsu do this, but he had stopped being surprised by his partner years ago. Black Zetsu walked to the ledge overlooking the lake and clasped his hand together as if in prayer. His legs transformed into the roots of a tree and dug into the ground. Given Zetsu's plant-like appearance, Sasori wasn't surprised at all. White Zetsu simply glared at his other half and tapped his foot impatiently. Wood style, deep forest emergence. Sasori was surprised by the technique's name, but he was rendered speechless as enormous trees emerged from the depths of the lake carrying a large turtle tied up half out of the water. Sasori recovered quickly and resolved to discover why his partner had the first Hokage's jutsu later. For now he settled for unveiling his favorite puppet to demonstrate that finesse and skill could beat any amount of brute force. Kakuzu, are we there yet? Whined Hidan as the two trekked through the mountain peaks of the Land of Lightning. No. Kakuzu's reply was short and economical, answering the question perfectly and leaving no room for a follow-up. Kakuzu, are we there yet? Apparently Hidan was too idiotic to realize that Kakuzu had already answered his question. Either that or he didn't care, which was more likely. No. Now would you kindly shut up for the remainder of our trip? I'd prefer to gather up thoughts before facing a demon in her own home. Snapped Kakuzu after being forced to answer the same moronic question for the 500th time. He was still furious at Hidan for the 30 Ryo payday he had gotten from their little wager. Kakuzu supposed he should be grateful to have money of any value, but his hopes had been raised by his partner. It was a mistake he wouldn't repeat in the future. Oh, so the Jinchuriki's a girl, huh? Said Hidan, taking Kakuzu's extra comments and running with them. Been a while since I killed a bitch. Like, what? 2 weeks? 3? 18 days. And we aren't killing the Jinchuriki. Unless you want to face leader's wrath by yourself. Replied Kakuzu, resigning himself to petty conversation with an idiot. I wouldn't be alone. Objected Hidan. You're my partner, right? You wouldn't heartlessly stand by while I was being attacked, would you? Hidan leaned into Kakuzu's shoulder wearing a wide grin. You're right, I wouldn't stand by. Hidan stood up and looked at Kakuzu strangely. He joked around, but he hid though Kakuzu didn't care at all. The fact that he would stand up for Hidan really surprised the Jashinist. I'd be as stupid as you if I didn't join leader. Glad for his immortality, Hidan broke into laughter. There's the Kakuzu I know. I thought you were getting soft for a second there. Wiping a tear from his eye, Hidan decided for the annoying coup de grace. Anyway, Kakuzu, are we there yet? Yes, you idiot. Kakuzu's outburst was accompanied by explosive action. He turned around, grabbed Hidan's head, and threw him through the doors of a large building Hidan hadn't noticed in one fluid motion. Kakuzu calmly walked through the debris like nothing had happened as Hidan got up and dusted himself off. Man, you can be a real ass sometimes, you know that? Grumbled Hidan. Where is this bitch we have to capture anyway? Kakuzu wordlessly grabbed Hidan's head and turned his gaze towards a blonde woman standing in the room they had entered rather forcibly. She looked back at the two Akatsuki immortals before turning to sprint down one of the long hallways of the building. Well, there goes any hope of an easy capture. Let's go, ordered Kakuzu as he took off after the blonde, Hidan right on his tail. The two chased the girl down the long hallway, which led them further downwards into another tunnel, this one with several inches of water. The fuck? Kakuzu, what the hell is this place? Yelled Hidan, getting a nasty feeling in his gut about their location already. I believe we're going down a sewer maintenance line. Informed Kakuzu calmly. God damn it, shouted Hidan. Let's just end this shit quickly. Hidan threw his triple-bladed scythe at the hidden cloud Jinchuriki still fleeing from them. The red weapon flew far further and straighter than it had any right to, and the blonde Jonin was only able to dodge it once they entered a larger tunnel that seemed to be where the rest of the sewer tunnels connected. Even with the extra maneuvering room, she barely managed to evade the deadly weapon. You missed. Informed Kakuzu. And you call yourself a member of Akatsuki? Shut the fuck up Kakuzu, shouted Hidan. A flick of his wrist yanked the scythe back into his hand by the thick cable attached to the weapon's bottom. Hidan looked away from his partner to address the girl they had been pursuing, who had inexplicably stopped to face them. Good job getting out of the way of my attack, but I am the slowest member of Akatsuki. I just can't hit anything, can I? Hey, Hidan. She's the Two-Tails Jinchuriki, said Kakuzu, turning to his partner. You'll die if you get careless and tell her all your weaknesses like that. Don't give me that shit Kakuzu, said Hidan. He turned to face the target, though he continued to address Kakuzu. If she could kill me, I'd welcome it. So you are Akatsuki. I knew something was up when I got this mission. The Hidden Cloud would never risk one of their Jinchuriki like this. But now that I know you're Akatsuki, I can't let you leave here alive. One hand seal later, and all the explosive notes that had been hidden in the entry arches to the main sewer line exploded, sealing the entrances and exits with walls of rubble. I'll kill you here and now. Oh, will that happen, said Hidan. I'd suggest another course of action though. When people get all enthusiastic about fighting and killing, I get all excited about fighting and killing. I go like, screw the objective, I just want to kill everything. It's an awesome feeling, but we have to take you alive and all, so maybe we could just talk this over? Talk this over? Asked the Jinchuriki incredulously. Yeah. This whole not killing thing goes against my religion entirely. I may not look it, but I'm a very devout man. And if there's one thing Jashinism is all about, it's killing. Leaving you alive after fighting you would just be wrong. Maybe you could just come quietly? Asked Hidan. Are you stupid? Asked both the target and Kakuzu at the same time. The Hidden Cloud Ninja was the only one to continue from there though. In the name of Yugito Nia the Hidden Cloud, I will kill you. The water at her feet, which had previously been calmly rippling, began to shoot up violently from the sheer force of her chakra. Kakuzu took the time to ready himself, while Hidan was standing completely silent with his necklace raised to his forehead in prayer to Jashin. Yugito's hair tie snapped, allowing her blonde hair to stand on end as if she were standing on a large fan. Blue, flame-like chakra erupted from her body. It took the form of a two-tailed cat made entirely of blue flames, giving the demon a wraith-like appearance. Its eyes, one green and one yellow, gazed down at the Akatsuki members it now dwarfed. "Hey Kakuzu," said Hidan, finishing up his prayer. "It looks like she's more of a pussy than a bitch." Hidan's quip was punctuated by a large paw made entirely of chakra smashing him into the concrete floor. The cat's maw opened wide and shot an enormous fireball at Kakuzu point blank. Kakuzu hardened his skin with a single hand seal to survive the blast, but the building the sewer line was housed under didn't, and exploded violently. Finesse and skill were all well and good, but the brute force of a tailed beast was a tad more massive than any mere ninja, a fact that Sasori was learning the hard way. Zetsu's unexplained wood style had turned the lake into a forest and pulled the three tails from the depths, but it had apparently drained a good deal of his chakra, and Black Zetsu was resting on the shore of the tree-infested lake. White Zetsu had grown an army of clones to assist in the fight, drawing their sustenance from the chakra of the three tails itself, and they were all busy absorbing as much chakra as they could. The downside was that the White Zetsu clones were designed to siphon chakra from ninja for the purpose of impersonation. Their purpose was subterfuge, not all-out combat against demons. Which left the task up to Sasori and his puppets. Hiriko's poison weapons would be little good against the armored turtle, as would his Red Army. That left him three options: his two favorite puppets or himself. Using himself was out of the question, and he preferred to use only one of his puppets at a time when going for brute force so he would be better able to control them. Many fingers make for good control of weaponized corpses, as the saying goes. And Sasori had to say, the third Kazekage's famed Iron Sand was holding its own against the tailed beast. Iron Sand, 6-inch nail. The black grains came together into three large spikes that launched themselves at the three tails. Sasori had no idea why half of the Kazekage's techniques were called what they were, but the stupid names had worked for the Kazekage, so they would work for him. Even if the spikes were clearly longer than 6 inches and shaped nothing like nails. Perhaps he would change that one. Two of the spikes dug into the relatively unarmored undersides of the beast's tails, and the other one broke uselessly on the closed shell that guarded the turtle's vulnerable eye. The shell opened up to reveal the one-eyed face of the three tails, which opened its mouth to roar a challenge at the pests that had dared to pull it out of the lake it had made to rest in and then attack it. The roar ended with a large ball of water being shot at Sasori, who was perched on one of the large tree branches that now coated the lake. The water bullet tore up those branches as it hurtled towards Sasori. Iron Sand, Black Mountain Range. The defensive jutsu in question was simply a big block of iron sand meant to stop attacks, and looked nothing like a mountain range at all. Despite the idiotic name bestowed upon it by the greatest Kazekage in history, the jutsu still did its job and stopped the water bullet dead in its tracks. The water likely washed off all of Sasori's poison, which annoyed the puppeteer, but not nearly as much as if one of his puppets had been destroyed by the attack. Sasori allowed himself a smirk as his plan entered its next phase. Iron Sand, World Method. What did that even mean? No wonder Sasori never could stand the third Kazekage. Regardless of the moronic name that graced it, the World Method caused the two spikes of iron sand embedded in the tails of the tailed beast to explode outwards from the middle, where they intersected the inside of the turtle's shell. The three tails roared in pain as its tails were utterly decimated by the sand running along their lengths. The third tail shot at Sasori, who was forced to move from his place on the tree's branches. The turtle seemed to have some intelligence in its one visible eye as it shot another water bullet the size of a cathedral at Sasori mid-air. Sasori didn't feel like wasting chakra on another Black Mountain range, and settled on avoiding the attack by pulling himself downwards by the chakra strings connected to the third Kazekage below. He was a tad too slow however, and the bottom edge of the jutsu blew his head clean off his shoulders and sent it flying. Most ninja would be dead, but Sasori was member of Akatsuki. As such, he was decidedly not normal. A chakra string emerged from his headless body and connected to the red-haired head. The head came flying back to him, and snapped right back into place, if backwards. Sasori's head spun right around so the three tails could see just how irritated he was. The puppeteer's brown eyes narrowed as the third Kazekage's iron sand rained down from above in fist-sized balls. Iron Sand, Drizzle. That did it. Sasori was going to rename every last one of these stupid jutsu. The drizzle technique did little more than annoy the three tails, since the beast managed to close the armor over its face in time. Sasori scowled as the armor opened back up to reveal a completely undamaged eye. The three tails roared loudly, the sheer power behind the sound tearing up some of the closer branches. The giant turtle raised its head up and opened its mouth wide. Sasori's eyes widened at the sight of the demonic chakra so dark red it was almost black gathering in front of the monster's mouth. It congealed into the infamous tailed beast ball and was quickly flying at Sasori. The famed puppeteer knew he couldn't stop an attack of that power, and decided instead to deflect the ball of concentrated death. Iron Sand, Whirling Shield. Sasori allowed himself a small smile as the black dust gathered into a hollow cone facing him and began spinning. The previous name of the technique had been Desert Whirlpool, which made no sense to Sasori, as whirlpools weren't found in the desert under any circumstances. The Tailed Beast Ball, a perfectly sensible name for a ball of chakra produced by a tailed beast, was exactly as large as the diameter of the hollow cone and began to slow as it ground through the spinning sand. Just as Sasori sensed the spinning iron about to give way, he willingly collapsed the right side of the cone. The change in resistance sent the attack flying off to the right of Sasori, and it missed by a mile. Sasori was glad it did too, seeing as it destroyed the section of short hit, dug a deep trench as it continued into the surrounding forest, then exploded violently. Sasori's puppets would have been decimated, and in fact, some of the iron sand had been vaporized, rendering it unusable. The dust that used to be sand fell away from the edges of the cone as the shape inverted, point facing the three tails. The beast had apparently counted Sasori as dead the moment the tailed beast ball had been launched, and was busy swiping Zetsu clones off of its shell with the one good tail it had left. Sasori decided to correct that mistake. No one, man, ninja, or even tailed beast disregarded Sasori of the red sand like that. Iron Sand, Drill Shot. The inverted whirling shield shot at Three Tails' unsuspecting face. The chakra in the iron sand must have sparked some recognition with the Three Tails, and it turned to face the burst of chakra. The burst of chakra turned out to be a massive drill made of poisoned iron dust that bore into the beast's one good eye. This understandably caused excruciating pain. Spread from both the tails and now the face, Sasori's poison began to kick in. Sasori would be surprised if it proved fatal to a tailed beast, but the powerful toxin coupled with the hundreds of white Zetsu clones draining chakra from the monster during the entire fight, and the Three Tails just couldn't stay up anymore. The giant turtle collapsed in an armored heap onto the tree branches, and actually tore through them into the lake where it floated like a discarded twig. The white Zetsu clones that had avoided being crushed detached from the Three Tails' hide and leapt up onto the tree branches. The ones that had died were tossed into the lake by the surviving clones, and they quickly dissolved into a white mush. Sasori sealed his Kazekage puppet into its special scroll as Zetsu's two halves emerged from the wood beside him. "You never told me you could use the wood style," said Sasori as he unsealed his puppet armor Hiruko and entered it. When he next spoke, his voice had been artificially deepened. "It seems rather handy to be able to convert any battlefield to your advantage. Earth-style jutsu are one thing, but the first Hokage's jutsu is on an entirely different level. Yeah, you never said you could do that." "Man, was I surprised," said a white Zetsu, presumably the original, as he and his other half fused back together. "Why? You make your clones with the wood style? And you've known I could use it offensively for years." "Oh yeah. I forgot." Sasori rolled his eyes, secure in the knowledge that the action would not be translated through Hiruko. "Let's just get this tailed beast to the hideout. I'd hate to keep it waiting." "Hidan, get up. You're not fooling anyone," said Kakuzu calmly after the fire subsided. "Oh come on Kakuzu," complained Hidan, pushing the giant cat paw off of himself. "I'd like to think I had the kitty confused." Water style, contained shockwave. A wonderful name if Kakuzu dared blow his own horn. A white mask with light blue markings on its cheeks emerged next to Kakuzu's head from under his Akatsuki cloak. The bird mask opened its beak and released a massive wave of water at the flaming cat. The Two Tails retaliated with a large fireball of its own, but the contained damage had the elemental advantage and blasted the cat off of Hidan with a loud hiss. It also blasted Hidan, but Kakuzu didn't really care. "Kakuzu, the fuck? You hit me with that too," shouted Hidan, who apparently did care. "Like that even hurt you? Looks like it did hurt our opponent though." Sure enough, the Two Tails had swirls of steam rising off of its flame-like body. It hissed at the two and leapt at them once more. Hidan jumped in front of the swat, blocking it with the blades of his scythe. As one would expect when trying to stand up to a 20-foot-tall demon with a spiky metal pole, Hidan was pinned to the ground, only his head sticking out from under the paw. The three blades did their job though, and bit deeply into the cat's paw, causing it to hiss in pain. The Two Tails turned its hiss into a snarl, and loosed a stream of flames onto Hidan's head. By the time the flames let up, even the rock surrounding Hidan was red hot. Satisfied with the charred corpse it had certainly created, the cat leapt forward at Kakuzu. The bounty hunter hardened his arm and delivered a powerful punch right onto the wound Hidan had created earlier. A jet of water from inside the sleeve of his cloak helped in making the beast recoil in pain. Kakuzu looked past the cat to see Hidan stabbing himself and twirling his feet around like the idiot he was. It would appear that he had gotten enough blood to start the longest ritual known to man. Once it was complete though, Kakuzu knew all he had to do was stop Hidan from going too far and killing the Jinchuriki. One drop of blood and it was all over. Kakuzu focused on the two tails, which had wisely put some distance between herself and Kakuzu. The mangy beast raised its moto to the heavens and began charging chakra for its strongest attack. Kakuzu glared at the cat, but otherwise didn't move as it finished charging the tiled beast ball. It was one of the strongest attacks in the world, but Kakuzu's nemesis had survived it, reportedly countless times, and Kakuzu would not lose to a man long dead. Besides, Hidan appeared to have finished up. The two tails brought its face forward to launch the tailed beast ball at Kakuzu when its right front leg collapsed. The sudden loss of balance threw off the beast's aim, and the tailed beast ball went flying past Kakuzu close enough to move his Akatsuki cloak. It took a large circular chunk out of the mountain behind him and continued on a wall before exploding harmlessly in mid-air. Kakuzu spared Hidan a glance, only to see him laughing maniacally with a black spike impaling his right arm. Under his mask, Kakuzu smiled. It seemed that this fight wouldn't be lasting much longer. The two tails fell to the ground helplessly and shrieked in pain as Hidan ripped the spike out of his right arm and violently stabbed it into his left arm. Kakuzu decided to speed up the progress and sent another wave of water at the fire cat. When the torrent abated, Kakuzu looked on at the blonde Jinchuriki from earlier. The only difference being the fact that she was soaking wet and had her hair unbound. The woman seemed genuinely shocked to not be a giant demon standing over the corpses of her enemies, as she had so many times in the past. Kakuzu looked over to Hidan and nodded, a subtle reminder to not target any vital areas, only a leg or two. Hidan raised the spike high above his head and melodramatically brought it down into his thigh. The blonde woman did not, however, collapse and scream in pain as they had both expected. Kakuzu was the first to realize what had happened, and took it upon himself to explain the strange phenomenon to Hidan, lest they be there all day. You have the blood of the two tails. This is the Jinchuriki. Your ritual is now useless unless you can get the girl's blood, stated Hidan calmly. The Jinchuriki had gotten over her opponent's self-mutilation and grown her fingernails to dagger-like lengths with an audible gleam. Bullshit. What's the damn difference? Shouted Hidan. Regardless of his whining, the silver-haired Akatsuki member ran at the Jinchuriki, slashing like a madman with his scythe. The blades were all blocked by the long claws the Jinchuriki had grown, but Hidan would not be rebuffed that easily. He continued swinging wildly, not giving Yugito a moment's rest. She was so focused on not giving any of her blood to the creep that she missed the black shadow that appeared behind him for a split second before attacking. Wind style, pressure damage. Kakuzu declared the name of his attack for his thread creature, since the monster didn't have vocal cords of his own. He could have remained silent, but Kakuzu prided himself on his naming skill, and took every feasible opportunity to declare a new one. The blunt wind smashed into Hidan and Yugito. They were both sent flying, but just like before, Hidan was absolutely fine. He even managed to use the blunt wind as a propellant for his own attack. Yugito landed painfully against one of the semi-standing concrete walls of the building. The impact became even more painful when Hidan landed on top of her. His knees broke several ribs, prompting Yugito to cough blood onto Hidan's face, and his black spike drove itself through her hands and into the wall. Hidan gave in to gravity and fell to the ground, but Yugito remained pinned to the wall, hanging by her hands. Hidan drew another ritual circle as quickly as he could. And it was a testament to his familiarity with the circumscribed triangle that he managed it with almost no deviation from the perfect lines of the symbol of Jashin. He licked a bit of the blood off of his face, and his skin took on a deep black hue. White markings appeared as well in shapes reminiscent of a stylized skeleton atop the pitch-black skin. He removed another spike from his tattered and blood-stained Akatsuki cloak and snapped it into its fullest length. Raising his face to the sky, Hidan began praying extremely loudly. Lord Jashin, accept this pittance of pain and suffering, doubled for you glory, as recompense for my transgressions against the commandments of your ways. For today I leave this woman alive for the future goals of your divine mission. The postponement of her death will be repaid by a painful and long death later to appease your great wishes. Please accept the apologies of your most faithful follower and continue to grant your blessings to me that I may keep the commandments and way of Jashin. Amen. With that, Hidan drove the spike through his abdomen, purposely missing every vital organ. Yugito gave one excruciating scream that seemed to last forever as her blood practically exploded over the wall she was still pinned to. The scream died down to a pitiful whimper before she finally lost consciousness and stopped struggling against the spike that ran through her palms to keep her in place. Kakuzu looked around at the scene, the complete devastation of the surrounding area, the fires that still raged, and the blood that coated almost everything. Any child passing by would have been scarred for life. Kakuzu's gaze finally settled on his partner, who was laying flat on his back as if dead, an image helped by the black metal spike protruding from his stomach. He was mumbling what appeared to be more prayers. Kakuzu had lived for a long time, and had acquired a good deal of patience and respect for religions, even if they all worshipped the wrong thing. He decided to give Hidan some time to finish his stupid ritual to his ridiculous god, but he got fed up after about 30 minutes. It was clear Hidan had no intentions of stopping anytime soon, and the Jinchuriki was bleeding out while whimpering in pain, having long since regained consciousness. "Hidan, it's already been 30 minutes. Aren't you done yet?" asked Kakuzu. "Shut up. Don't interfere with the ritual," yelled Hidan, sitting up slightly as the markings faded from his skin. "It's bad enough I don't get to kill her now as per the commandments, so the ritual is extra important this time around. It's a pain for me too, you know." "Ouch," Hidan mumbled the last part as he pulled the weapon out of his stomach. Kakuzu's witty retort was cut off by the voice of God himself speaking into their minds. "We have another one." The two turned to each other and nodded. Kakuzu was the one to send the message to the leader of Akatsuki, claiming the capture of another tailed beast. The usual alert rang through the minds of all members of Akatsuki, before a more privatized message came directed at Hidan and Kakuzu. "Zetsu will be along to collect your Jinchuriki and bring it to the ceiling location. Guard it until then." Hidan looked up at Kakuzu expectantly. Kakuzu sighed and reached into his Akatsuki cloak. He pulled out a bundle of black cloth with red clouds and tossed it to Hidan, who quickly changed cloaks into one that wasn't tattered, burned, and coated in blood. "Yet. Two at once, they're catching up, Naruto," said Deidara as Akatsuki sealed both the three tails and the two tails. The three tails was slowly but surely losing mass as its very being was absorbed into the ceiling statue, while the Jinchuriki of the two tails was having her tenant's chakra sucked out the old-fashioned way. "Yeah, we'll need to get back on that," said Naruto. He turned his golden eyes to the Akatsuki's resident spy masters. "Is the fox still hiding in the hidden leaf?" Sasori's puppet body turned to face the young blonde team. "Unless the Jinchuriki is out on a mission at the moment, he should still be in the village itself. You can't seriously be considering an attack on the Hidden Leaf village. My pathetic village was one thing, but the Hidden Leaf is on an entirely different level." "Aw, you do care about us," said Deidara in a high girlish tone. "Trust us on this one, we'll be fine." "So you'll be in the Land of Fire then?" asked Kakuzu gruffly. "Unless they've moved the largest of the hidden villages since last I've heard, yes Kakuzu. We'll be in the Land of Fire," replied Naruto, tone laden with sarcasm. "Hilarious. Deadpan Kakuzu. Hidan and I will be in the area as well, hunting for funds. If you have time, perhaps you'd like to assist us in destroying a temple. It might lure your Jinchuriki out of a village proper. We help you get your target and you help us get ours. I don't see why not." Naruto turned to his partner for confirmation. "Deidara? I don't have a problem with it. I get to blow stuff up either way. If their plan doesn't work, I get to turn twice as many places into works of art." Shrugged Deidara. "Let's do it." "Alright then. We'll meet outside the fire temple. And Deidara?" Kakuzu turned the Akatsuki's explosives expert. "I'm after bounties, so try to leave the bodies recognizable." Deidara grinned, though she knew her face would still be a shadowy blob to the others. "No promises." Konan was one to the two females in Akatsuki, and one of the founding members. Not a founding member of the Akatsuki consisting of 10s rank missing ninjas, but the previous Akatsuki. Ones who had donned the cloaks knowing what the red cloud stood for and willing to fight for the liberation of the land of rain from Hanzo the Salamander. She had only been a girl, fighting with her friends for peace. Led by Yahiko and powered by Nagato, Akatsuki had almost achieved their goal too. Then Hanzo had double-crossed them. They should have seen it coming, known they couldn't trust him, but the promise of peace had been too tempting. Yahiko and Nagato, her best friends, had paid for that temptation with their lives. That moment of her life was important for one other reason. It was the moment Pain was born. Rising from the bodies of her two friends, Pain had all of their power and convictions, yet none of their mercy. The god incarnate would stop at nothing to see the dream of world peace realized, even if he had destroyed nations to do so. The blue-haired little girl from back then had died too, in a way. Wise to the ways of the world, Konan had devoted her existence to helping what was left of her friends accomplish their goals. And as the only team of Akatsuki to not capture one of their assigned tailed beasts, Konan and Pain were not helping to accomplish the goals of the organization. Pain was too busy ruling over the village hidden in the rain, Akatsuki's base of operations after the death of Hanzo the Salamander, to be bothered with hunting for the six tails. So Konan took it upon herself to find the beast. Actually, she took it upon Sasori and Zetsu to find the beast, but she was the one to hunt it down and bring it back. Apparently the six tails had been one of the harder-tailed beasts to track down, since its Jinchuriki was actually a missing ninja roaming the world to stay one step ahead of the hidden mist. That wasn't to say Sasori and Zetsu had any trouble finding the Jinchuriki and keeping tabs on him, but it had been harder than most. Right now, the Jinchuriki, one Utakata, was staying at Mount Katsuragi. As one of the few ninja in the world capable of flight, Konan had little trouble reaching the mountaintop fort. Her paper wings allowed her to disregard the no-doubt plethora of traps that littered the plains around Mount Katsuragi with ease. She touched down, legs forming as her wings grew smaller, and walked slowly toward the abode located atop the mountain. "Hold it right there, little missy." Konan looked over her shoulder to see an old man with a sword pointed to her back. "I don't know how you got here, but I'd suggest turning right around and leaving this place if you know what's good for you." Konan's amber eyes closed, and she let out a sigh. She had been hoping to not leave any corpses. She turned to face him, and something shot out of her sleeve too fast to track for all but the highest level ninja. The old man might have been able to see it in his prime, but as he was now, the paper shuriken caught him in between the eye, and he dropped like a sack of rocks. Tinbi. Konan turned back to face the mansion fortress at the sound of the young girl's shriek. The young blonde ignored Konan for a moment and ran past her to the dead man on the ground. "Tinbi. Wake up. You can't be dead. You have to keep protecting me, remember?" Tears welled in her eyes as she continued to shake the old man's corpse. The girl's pleas fell on dead ears though, there was no one to hear her but the Akatsuki member that had just done the deed. Konan readied herself to kill the girl as well, folding another piece of paper in her sleeve with one hand as quickly as only an expert could, and then hardened the material with her chakra until it was as sharp as any steel. The deadly origami flew from her sleeve at the back of the girl's head, but was intercepted halfway by a bubble of all things. The shuriken punctured the bubble, which exploded in a cloud of smoke. When the smoke cleared, the young blonde girl was gone. In her place stood an older man with jet black hair covering his left eye. His blue kimono was open to his waist, displaying a figure that was neither muscular nor scrawny, holding a bamboo tube. In his right hand was a metal bubble blower. "Why are you here?" Despite a glare that positively shot daggers, he took the time to address Konan as if there was still some hope for a peaceful resolution. Konan didn't deign to answer, instead throwing a veritable stream of paper shuriken at the man. In a feat impossible for all but the best ninja, he managed to block every single one with the metal tube in his hand. "You didn't hesitate to kill Tinbi, but there wasn't a single shuriken aimed at a lethal area when you attacked me. I'll ask again, what do you want with me?" Konan looked him dead in the eye as she replied, "I am Akatsuki. We will usher in a new era of peace using the nine-tailed beasts. As Jinchuriki of the six tails, we need the tailed beast within you." As if on some unspoken cue, the two S-ranked missing ninjas jumped back. Konan loosed another handful of paper shuriken, while Utakata dipped his bubble blower into the bamboo tube at his waist and blew several bubbles. Konan's shuriken were traveling faster, and popped the bubbles, which all exploded in various elements. Some released powerful flames when they burst, others gallons of water. Utakata was back on the offensive immediately, blowing bubbles with much higher velocity, easily capable of breaking bones. Konan was forced back again and again as Utakata slowly advanced. Konan dodged a bubble once more, and her heels almost slipped off the edge of the mountain. Utakata noticed as well, smirking before he dipped his blower in the soapy water once more. This time, a barrage of suds came flying at Konan. The blue-haired woman made one hand seal before falling backwards over the edge. Utakata turned around marveling at how easy it was to defeat a member of Akatsuki. He had never heard of the organization, but they had seemed rather competent. He should have known that it wouldn't be that easy, whipping around as a large shadow obscured the sun. His eyes widened in wonder at what he saw. The woman from before was flying with white wings made of the paper she had been trying to kill him with. Her legs were also conspicuously missing, Though give the look of her bottom edge, it seemed she was actually made out of paper and had taken the paper for her wings out off of her bottom half. He supposed it made sense. What use were legs when you could fly? As fast as he had turned, he was still too slow to avoid the attacks that were already heading his way. The large paper spikes dug into his knees, inducing one of the most painful things he had experienced since his master had tried to remove the six tails from him. Utakata decided to risk one last warning before he went all out on this paper user. Hotari. Run. Hotari, the girl from before, emerged from behind one of the trees on the grassy mountaintop. No. I won't leave you. Konan thought it was a foolish sentiment, though she understood where it was coming from. Utakata didn't care for sentiment at the moment though. I'll be fine, but I can't go all out if you're here. The pain in his shattered kneecaps was threatening to send him into unconsciousness. If you ever thought of me as your master, run. It was all he could do. The noxious red chakra of the six tails flowed out of him, covering him like a second skin. Six red tails swung lazily behind him as his reason became clouded by an unstoppable rage. Utakata gave a fearsome roar, and his tail shot out at the flying paper user as Hotari ran towards the spiral staircase to the foot of the mountain. Konan dodged the first five, but the sixth hit her square in the chest. Utakata grinned victoriously, and then roared again when Konan burst into a flurry of paper. The pages flew at him like a swarm of bats, obscuring his vision. He swung his arms like a child trying to swat a fly, and the papers seemed to thin out. He grinned once more, but wouldn't let his guard down like before. It was due to his caution that he managed to jump away from the exploding notes on the ground before they exploded. While he was in midair, another spear of paper came out of nowhere to impale his right arm, pinning it to the side of his body. Utakata hit the ground hard, and his dulled mind decided to rest for a second and let the power of his tailed beast heal his wounds. This turned out to be the opening Kono was looking for, as her pages flew in and wrapped him like a present, sticking to his skin until there wasn't an inch of skin showing. Utakata was the Jinchuriki of the six tails though, and he wouldn't be held back by such a measly barrier. Underneath the paper body bag, the red chakra turned a shade of light purple. The paper began to hiss and dissolved as Konan watched from above. Utakata broke out with one final burst of acidic chakra and stared back at Konan. He opened his mouth and shot out a jet of acid. Konan exploded into a tornado of paper as the concentrated jet of acid shot harmlessly through her. Obscured as she was by the paper, Konan reformed the upper half of her body higher up in the tornado of paper and gathered a smaller cylinder of pages in her right hand. Utakata noticed her as the amount of paper lessened to reveal a Konan holding the paper cylinder, which compressed to form a large spear. The weapon was hurled at Utakata, who tried to dodge the obvious attack. He closed his mouth to stop the flow of acid and jumped backwards. Right into one of Konan's paper clones. The paper construct slammed its palms into Utakata's chest and exploded. The blast launched the six tails Jinchuriki backwards, right into the path of Konan's weapon. Utakata still managed to avoid the weapon by using one of his six chakra tails to throw himself to the side once more. The spear still stabbed his tail, and went through it a good ways into the ground. Utakata roared in pain, and his screams only increased in volume when the explosive tags littered throughout the paper spear exploded. Konan looked on expressionless throughout it all. Another wave of her hand, and the paper fluttering around her flew at the screaming Jinchuriki and covered him in paper. The acid would have no doubt eaten through the paper as it had before, but Konan didn't give Utakata the precious seconds for the acid to do its work. Each tag-sized sheet of paper that coated Utakata was in fact an explosive tag. Individually they were devastating weapons capable of taking out even the most experienced ninja. En masse, Konan could turn them into bombs to rival Deidara. The tags exploded, and Utakata was launched by the explosion off the edge of the cliff. His tail struggled to find purchase on the cliff face, but simply couldn't dig in deep enough, fast enough to stop his descent. He landed heavily in a cloud of debris at the bottom, a fall that would have no doubt killed most ninja. But Jinchuriki were not most ninja, and Konan was not going to fail pain due to some unconfirmed sense of victory. To ensure that the Jinchuriki was down for the count, several dozen more explosive tags flew down into the dust cloud and added to the commotion. When the smoke cleared, Utakata lay broken and bleeding, no demonic chakra in sight. Konan allowed herself a small indulgent grin. She took little pleasure in killing, unlike some members of Akatsuki, but she was good at it. And no matter how perverse the profession, there was some joy in excellence. Her paper coated the Jinchuriki, this time for transport rather than asphyxiation, leaving a small opening for air around the mouth. It floated up to the femme fatale, and they headed out into the night. Naruto and Deidara met Kakuzu and Hidan trekking through the mountains towards the fire temple. The two immortals were almost missed in the mist by the two youngest members of Akatsuki as they flew by, a fact that Deidara didn't let them forget easily. "Man, I almost didn't see you." "Yeah," mocked Deidara. "You looked like ants from way up there." As we flew overhead. "Several times faster than you. I can't believe you guys still walk everywhere." "Yeah. I fly. Konan flies, the Kazekage could fly. Hell, even that ancient excuse for it Tsuchikage can fly. I am well aware of the fact that we walk everywhere. Contrary to what you seem to think, flight is not so easily obtained," replied Kakuzu. Naruto often styled himself as the more mature one in their team, but even he enjoyed heckling his seniors from time to time. "It is for us. Maybe if you ask nicely, Deidara could make you a bird. For a fee." "I do not waste money," said Kakuzu immediately. Hidan looked to be on the verge of complaining about the long walks and demand that Kakuzu pay for airfare, but the conversation was moving a tad too fast for him. Besides, as long as Jashin got his tribute at the end of the day, who cared how long it took to get there? "But walking sure wastes time," said Deidara in mocking lament. "And time is money." Naruto finished his partner's sentence, looking at the two immortals with a small smirk. Kakuzu seemed genuinely torn by the logic for a moment, before steeling himself against further conflicting emotions. "I will not give a Rio when I could save one instead. We'll walk." "Kakuzu, I don't want to walk all the way there," whined Hidan. "Just pay the damn fee. It'll be so much faster." Now Hidan," scolded Naruto mockingly. "Kakuzu's made his decision for the both of you. You've made your bed, and now you have to sleep in it." Naruto joined Deidara on her owl, a form he had insisted on, and the two blondes rose farther away. "See you at the top." As it turned out, it would be several hours before Kakuzu and Hidan joined the two at the fire temple. "Well, look who deigned to grace us with their presence," greeted Deidara mockingly. "Let's just get this over with," grumbled Kakuzu. He and Naruto stood side by side in front of the large iron doors that barred the entrance to the fire temple. Flanked on either side by two imposing statues, the seal-reinforced doors looked as strong as they were. Kakuzu most likely couldn't see it as his right fist took on a dark brown hue and solidified to become harder than diamonds, but Naruto could see the chakra flowing through the complex seal as clear as day. Not that those would stop them. Kakuzu and Naruto both pulled their right hands back, balled into fists, and swung at the iron doors. Despite the seals designed to make them impregnable, the doors went flying off their hinges and into the temple's courtyard. It was clear that no one inside had been expecting the doors to suddenly soar inwards, and nobody opposed the four Akatsuki members as they slowly walked in. Deidara, never one for guile and subtlety, broke the awkward silence. "We're looking for someone named Chakariku?" Deidara turned to Kakuzu, who simply showed her his bingo book in exasperation. "Kairiku. We're looking for Kairiku. If you come out now, well, we'll still level the place and kill everyone to send a message, but we'll feel worse about it." The monks were mostly pacifists, and though they trained in taijutsu and some even dabbled in ninjutsu, none of them could hold a candle to an actual ninja. Their terror was lessened as they moved out of the way to make room for a monk who carried himself like he was in charge. He was bald, as were all the monks, neither old nor young, and wore the traditional robes that all the monks of the fire temple wore. All in all, he was entirely unremarkable, save for two things. The first was the absolute fury in his eyes directed to the Akatsuki members, and the second was the cloth wrapped around his waist with the kanji for fire emblazoned upon it. He might be a monk now, but this was unmistakably Kairiku, former member of the 12 Guardian Ninja. "What business do you have in this temple?" he asked, though it was obvious he didn't really care. "These two are here for your bounty, but my partner and I are here to stir up trouble and bring the hidden leaf into things. If you want to send a messenger now, go ahead. I won't guarantee that there will be anyone left alive after this to carry a message for help," offered Naruto. Hidan seemed distressed by the offer to let one of the monks go, but by some act of God he held his tongue. It was an act of Jashin, forcing Hidan to pray in silence before spilling the blood of his foes in the ritual, which he would make especially painful for these pacifist freaks. "If you are as evil as you seem, I will accommodate you here and now. I'll kill you to prevent your wicked acts from continuing." During his threats, Kairiku raised his hands into strange stance, one hand in a half-ram seal and the other with the palm facing the ground. "Welcoming approach, thousand-armed murder." Naruto's eyes widened as he saw the golden spirit of Kanon form behind the ninja monk, who stood as still as a statue, glaring at the Akatsuki members. Judging by the expressions of the other three in the group, he was the only one who could. Deciding that their talents would best be served fighting threats they could see, Naruto addressed his allies. "I'll handle this guy. You can look for more bounties and cause havoc in the temple." Hidan lowered his necklace and smiled. "Now there's an order I can get behind. Kakuzu, how come you never let me cut loose like this?" Hidan didn't wait for a response and ran off, chasing some monks into one of the temple's side building. Kakuzu looked at Naruto strangely for a second, but soon forgot when he saw Kukaku, a old bounty, but still worth quite a bit. Deidara looked at Naruto and shrugged as she turned away. "If you say so. I'm going to show these guys what real art is." A large clay lizard appeared beside her, and she rode it in a direction that hadn't been taken yet, right past Kairiku into the main temple building. Kairiku's face contorted in anger at their flippant disregard of his declaration to protect the temple, and Naruto saw the angelic goddess behind him mirror the expression, morphing into a red demon. The demon's face was furious, and one of its 1,000 fists shot out at Deidara. Naruto wasn't about to let his partner be blindsided by such an attack, and jumped in between the phantom blow and the mad bomber. His fist met the significantly larger demons, but the power of Sage Mode prevailed again, and the red fist was torn to shreds of chakra by the burst of Sage Chakra. Naruto looked up at Kairiku, who stood once more in front of a golden goddess with a surprised expression on his face, and smirked. "Sorry, but I'm your opponent here." Kairiku was quick to recover, and retorted in kind. "I am Kairiku of the Fire Temple, and I won't lose to the likes of you." Naruto rushed the monk, watching as the jutsu he was attacking become enraged once more. This time, it attacked with more than one fist, and Naruto would have taken a massive blow if he was unable to see the phantom attacks. As it was, he deftly maneuvered around the punches, drawing ever closer to Kairiku himself. Naruto jumped over a fist that materialized particularly close, then took a punch full in the face while in mid-air. The blow hurt a surprising deal, and Naruto had no doubt that without Sage Mode, it would have likely incapacitated him. As it was, the blow sent him flying back, or it would have, if he had not been intercepted halfway by another fist. The pummeling continued, and the red demon practically juggled him for a short while before launching a particularly strong blow that sent him flying. He would have some bruises in the morning, but not too bad for a supposedly lethal barrage. It was clear the man's jutsu made him superior to even Naruto in close combat. The monk's technique could launch attacks from any direction at any time, making it impossible to predict. Not even the Sharingan would have been able to react in time. So Naruto settled on killing Kairiku at a distance. Sage Art, Inorganic Incarnation. Connected to the earth with Sage Chakra better than any earth chakra, Naruto used his chakra to give life temporarily to the rocks below the Fire Temple. The earth below Kairiku erupted as if it wanted to kill the monk. Taken off guard by the loss of footing, Kairiku reached out with his hands to keep upright. Naruto raised his hands from the ground, removing the life-giving chakra from the earth they stood on, when he saw the golden goddess behind Kairiku fading. His jutsu was clearly tied to that strange stance he had adopted before the fight. Naruto rushed the ninja monk while he was still off balance. To Kairiku's credit, he recovered quickly, just in time to come eye to eye with one of the only practitioners of Sage Mode in the world. Naruto sent a simple jab into the monk's stomach, which the former member of the 12 Guardian Ninja blocked. The hand that caught his punch slowed Naruto's strike down about as much as a wet tissue paper. Kairiku was sent flying across the courtyard, and landed heavily in the dirt. He rose as quickly as he could and attempted to regain his stance to fend off the Akatsuki member, but Naruto wouldn't give him a second. The sage's next punch was enough to end it. Kairiku wasn't sent hurtling through the air by this attack, instead being caught by Naruto's other hand. After all, it wouldn't do to have Kakuzu's bounty go soaring off the mountain. Hidan had stopped caring about Kakuzu's precious money the moment he was out of sight. He might have been the slowest member of Akatsuki, but when compared to people like Itachi and Naruto, he never really stood a chance there. As it was, he was incredibly fast ninja, easily capable of catching up to some monks with minimal ninja training. The slaughter was quick and bloody, resulting in the hallway he had caught up to them in getting an impromptu paint job. The bloodshed didn't last nearly as long as he had intended, and it left him sprinting through the Fire Temple, looking for his next victim. He continued this way for a short while, hunting down monks whenever he saw them. He passed Kakuzu, who had some midget's corpse over his shoulder. Deciding to ignore his partner for the time being, Hidan turned the other way and continued to hunt for tributes to Jashin. After a while longer, it seemed like he had gotten them all, and so went back to the courtyard. Kakuzu was looming ominously above two corpses, probably the two guys with the largest bounties in the area, and Naruto was meditating like he was in some kind of serene glade, not a wrecked temple they had just slaughtered. Deidara was making clay butterflies, which would fly into the air and explode in bright colors. It wasn't a skill used often in combat, but it helped pass the time. "Did we get all the peaceful fuckers?" asked Hidan. Neither he nor Kakuzu were censors, but he had a basic grasp of the skills possessed by other Akatsuki members. He knew enough about the two blondes to realize that if he had missed anyone, Naruto could sense them. Sure enough, the sage opened his eyes and whirled around, kunai flying. A yelp was heard from behind the pillar he had just hit, and Naruto turned to Hidan. "Remember, we need to send a message to the Hidden Leaf. So we'd prefer scared to dead." "We'd prefer scared to dead," repeated Hidan mockingly as he rolled his eyes. "Honestly, I'm not fucking 5. Hidan stalked over to the pillar, where the last monk was no doubt cowering in fear. The idiot had likely been waiting for the Akatsuki members to leave the courtyard to make a run for it and get help. Hidan rounded the corner, scythe ready to stop any desperate attack by a desperate monk. Instead he got a sharp kick to the shin. Hopping on one leg from the pain, Hidan looked down to see not the monk he had been expecting, but a terrified little boy, likely a monk in training. He wore a scaled-down version of the monk's garb, and had short brown hair. Regaining his composure and clearing his throat, Hidan put his scythe away, confident that he could beat a child, even if he could die. "Oi, you little shit, we need you for something." It was clear that Hidan's great charisma wouldn't convince him to come willingly towards the 4 people who had just massacred a temple of pacifists. Hidan settled for grabbing his hair and dragging the child, kicking and screaming in horror, out into the courtyard. The other 3 Akatsuki members raised eyebrows at the sight of the young boy, but otherwise remained as intimidating as they were expected to be. Once he drew close enough, Hidan tossed the boy unceremoniously into the midst of the monsters. Naruto was the first to speak, his voice copying Itachi's terrifying monotone perfectly. "Do you know where the Hidden Leaf Village is?" It was all the boy could do to nod, looking on in terror with tear-filled eyes. "Take a message to them, and we'll let you live, yeah," said Deidara, sounding far more sympathetic than Naruto was, and much kinder than Hidan and Kakuzu were even capable of faking. The boy's eyes showed some trace of hope underneath the mind-numbing fear, and Kakuzu took the opportunity to seal the deal. "If you don't deliver this message telling them what we've done here today, and that we'll be here for 4 days, we will know. And we will find you," he growled, rekindling the terror in the boy. "We have another one." The 4 Akatsuki members froze up in unison at the sound of Pain's voice. They all realized that if the boy ran and found a patrol instead of the village, the Hidden Leaf could be on them while they sat there like ducks and got killed. Something would have to be done to slow him down a bit. Hidan pulled his scythe off of his back and delivered a painful cut to the boy's right leg, eliciting a shriek of pain. "We can't have you getting there too fast, now can we?" he said, licking the blood off of his red scythe. "Get going, you little shit." Following his advice, the young boy limped out of the temple's broken gates as fast as he could, trailing blood the whole way. "That might have been a tad extreme, don't you think?" said Deidara, a little sympathetic for the boy. "If it weren't for you two, we wouldn't have let him go at all," said Kakuzu, taking a seat on top of a small cushion positioned on the stairs of the temple for the ceiling. It wasn't long before the other 3 followed suit. "True," said Naruto. "Regardless, let's get this sealing done with." 2 days later, a patrol of ninja found a monk in training, half dead along the roadside. He was immediately brought in for medical treatment, and the moment he could talk, the message was passed on. Content with the knowledge he had done as they had told him, the boy slipped into unconsciousness. Tsunade was immediately alerted to the message, and she convened as many eligible ninja as she could to face down Akatsuki. Teams 7 through 10 were assembled before her, with one of Danzo's rats filling the spot in Team 7 after her apprentices. Run-in with Akatsuki. It still brought tears to Tsunade's eyes, that another person she had cared about was taken from her. This time though, it strengthened her resolve to end Akatsuki, and to that end she had remained as Hokage. For once in her life, the people who had killed her loved ones had a face and a name. Akatsuki. Just the word was enough to make the 4 teams of hardened ninja tense up, with the exception of Team 8, who had never had the misfortune of meeting Akatsuki face to face. The tales of horror told by the other teams, along with Sakura's absence, was enough to convince them of Akatsuki's power. "Has attacked the fire temple." Asuma's eyes widened as he took in a sharp intake of air. Tsunade's next word confirmed his fears. Only one person survived, a small boy. The only reason he made it was to send us a message. The Hidden Leaf can't ignore this kind of assault on our lands. I'm sending all of you to take out the Akatsuki members. They'll leave the temple in another 2 days, but they've promised to stay there and meet you in battle until then. It's most likely a trap. We'll need a good plan. Shikamaru interrupted Tsunade, usually a bad idea, but he was usually right, so Tsunade let it slide. You're right, of course. But this is one of the only chances we'll ever get to move against Akatsuki. Even if it is on their terms, we'll be able to send reinforcements once they become available. They think they're luring us out, but they don't realize how many Leaf Ninja they've lured to them. Right now, you're the only ninja present and capable enough to fight Akatsuki until I can send more ninja to back you up. Until then, be careful. We don't want Akatsuki killing any more Leaf Ninja. Sasuke looked up, Sharingan blazing and lightning chakra crackling down his arm. Don't be surprised if they're all dead when reinforcements arrive. The Uchiha heir turned around then and exited the room, determination incarnate, and face contorted in anger. Well, I guess that wraps that up then, chuckled Kakashi, at least having the decency to look sheepish for his students' behavior. Guess we should get ready as quickly as we can, we'll plan on the way there, okay? The others in the room nodded in agreement, and all exited the room with a single hand seal and a flicker of movement. For better or worse, Akatsuki and the Hidden Leaf would clash once more. The 4 teams of Leaf Ninja were en route to the Fire Temple when the subject they were all thinking about came up. Having faced Akatsuki the most times out of all of them other than Sora, and being more level-headed about it, since they weren't hunting him, Sasuke was the one to approach the taboo topic. So what strategy do we have to ensure we aren't just handing Sora to them on a silver platter as soon as they kill us all? The question was asked with no sarcasm or ill intent, simply a wish to be prepared, but it effectively killed any joy they were still clinging to. You can't just go asking a question like that. Be rated 10-10. Learn some tact. Kakashi held up a hand to stop the argument before it could really begin. He's right though. We're supposed to be stalling for reinforcements, but it's just as likely Akatsuki will kill us all quickly and be off with Sora. That's probably their plan, so they likely won't hold back at all. A drawn-out battle actually favors them here, not us. So then what are we supposed to do? Asked Neji. Stand idly by and let them get what they want? I'll try as hard as I can to prevent that from becoming my fate. Even though the question was aimed at Kakashi, it was Shikamaru who answered it. No. We just need to steamroll them with superior numbers on one front while keeping them busy on the others. We'll also need an escape plan for Sora in case things go south, but I doubt he'd be allowed out of his house if we didn't have one on standby. Correct, Shikamaru. Replied Kurenai. Us Jonin will take on one of the Akatsuki at a time while you use your teamwork and numbers to keep the other Akatsuki members from interfering. We'll finish our member off as quickly as we can, and move on to help you. As we take them down, we gain more and more momentum. It's far from foolproof, but it's all we have. Kakashi spoke up next to finish the plan. Our escape plan for Sora is actually inspired by our enemy. Naruto isn't the only one who has a summoning contract. Guy, Sasuke, and myself can all reverse summon Sora away from the Fire Temple at a moment's notice. Shikamaru nodded in agreement, and then asked his last question. If the Jonin are working together, and will be working in our teams, then what does the other team do? Neji, who was still listening in, hadn't even know about that, and he was supposed to be a genius. The Hyuga had no doubt it would have occurred to him eventually, but his area of expertise was martial arts, not strategy and tactics. Shikamaru might not have had the most potential in the Hyuga clan in the last century, but he was a genius of a different breed. Asuma was the Jonin to inform them all of the plan this time, falling back into the group as they jumped through the canopy of the Land of Fire's expansive forests. Kakashi's team will be supplementing the others with Ino's support on our team, or added muscle on the other 2 teams. Sai will be with Guy's team, and Sasuke will be helping Kurenai's team. Your main job will be staying alive, and then keeping them away from us, but if you see an opening, you'll need the power to capitalize on it. Shikamaru couldn't have thought of a better plan himself, given the circumstances and the limited time available to them. It had a lot of holes, and could be thrown into chaos by the 2 members of Akatsuki who were still complete mysteries beyond a scythe and bloodlust. But it was the best they could think of, and it depended on their combat ability against Akatsuki. Shikamaru looked around at the Chunin, and Neji, who would be going toe-to-toe with Akatsuki to gauge their confidence. Kiba was confident, and Shino was as calm as ever, but they had never faced Akatsuki before, and Shikamaru was glad Sasuke would be keeping them alive. Hinata wasn't as excited as her teammates, though if she knew what awaited them, she might just crawl up into a ball and never move again. Out of the people who had faced Akatsuki before, Sora seemed eager for a rematch, and Sasuke seemed downright determined to win. And ever since the Land of Honey, and Sasuke's first encounter with Akatsuki, he hadn't been anything close to that when facing Akatsuki. It made Shikamaru wonder just what Sasuke had up his sleeve. Naruto's golden eyes opened and he rose from his position meditating on the stairs of the Fire Temple's courtyard. "They're here. And the fools actually brought the Jinchuriki straight to us," he said as the other three S-ranked ninjas gathered around. "About fucking time," complained Hidan. "On the other hand, I can start praying now. Then I can just go crazy when those leaf fuckers get here. Oh man, I'm a genius." Snapping his fingers at his own brilliance, Hidan pulled out his necklace and began mumbling prayers to Jashin. The words themselves were unintelligible, but the others knew him well enough to guess that it involved blood, death, and pain. "Anyone in particular to watch out for? The last thing we need is an idiot being sliced to pieces because we let our guard down," asked Kakuzu, tilting his head towards his partner. "Kakashi of the Sharingan is with them, along with the third Hokage's son, the one who is a member of the 12 Guardian Ninja. Itachi's little brother is there too. If there are any others, I don't recognize their chakra," said Naruto. "I'll assume you want the big money in recognizable condition?" "Of course," said Kakuzu, looking away from his comrades at a small dot silhouetted against the sun. "Shall I give them a warm welcome?" Kakuzu didn't wait for a response from the other Akatsuki members, instead having a white mask with blood-red lips emerge next to his head. The mask's mouth opened wide with an audible cracking sound before a massive wall of flames shot out of the mask at the hawk that was rapidly flying towards them. "Fire style, intelligent hard work." Deidara leaned over to her partner and whispered in his ear. "What does that even mean?" Naruto simply shrugged. The hawk pulled up short and gave a powerful flap of its wings. "Wind style, raging whirlwind strike." All the members of Akatsuki were knowledgeable about summons, and so weren't surprised when it spoke. Hidan might have been, but he was still deep in prayer. They were slightly confused as to why it would try and counter with a wind jutsu though. Their questions were answered as the figure on top of the hawk stood up and finished his jutsu. "Fire style, grandiose fireball." The winds from the hawk augmented the flames, letting them burn hotter and longer than usual. The two fire jutsu collided, a clash of power against power. The collaboration jutsu that would have likely brushed off most water-style jutsu was just enough to counter Kakuzu's technique, though not much more, a testament to Kakuzu's power. While there was still a thin wall of fire between them, a cloaked figure burst through. He hurtled towards the Akatsuki members at an extreme speed holding a bar of pure lightning in his right hand. The chakra flow-enhanced sword sliced through Kakuzu's neck and shattered the mask next to it like a hot knife through butter. Kakuzu's two halves fell to the ground as the figure discarded the flaming cloak. Sasuke then raised his left hand and pointed at Hidan with two fingers. A spike of lightning chakra shot out and impaled Hidan's heart. As if to make absolutely sure was dead, the tip of the Chidori spear split into countless others of varying lengths. The end result was an Akatsuki member that looked like a pin cushion for bolts of lightning. The lightning retreated to Sasuke's hand and he jumped at Deidara with his sword in hand. The element of surprise had been lost though, and Deidara easily dodged onto a clay falcon she had made beforehand. The evasion turned out to be unnecessary though, as Sasuke had to twist around mid-lunge to block a ray of lightning chakra from behind him. The blade absorbed the lightning chakra, as it was designed to, and the lightning jutsu ended. Sasuke's Sharingan widened at sight of the very alive and very not decapitated Akatsuki member standing up before him. Amen. Sasuke's head whipped to face the Akatsuki member he had just impaled several times over, who was whirling his arms as if he were warming up for a morning workout. "Man, I get kind of out of it when I'm praying. Naruto, when are those leaf bastards getting here?" The silver-haired Akatsuki member paused for a second, before shouting once more. "The fuck? Who the fuck stabbed me? Was it you, you little shit? I bet it was. I'll fucking murder you. That hurt, you know." Even as surprised as he was, Sasuke easily dodged the slow, predictable swing of Hidan's scythe. He leapt back onto his hawk, which retreated to a safer distance. It wasn't safe enough, since Kakuzu was not pleased at having his head cut off and his fire-style heart destroyed. Water-style, bursting collision. It wasn't the most unique jutsu, but Kakuzu substituted the lack of effects and skill with an ungodly amount of sheer force. The torrent of water bore down on Sasuke, but was stopped dead in its tracks. Earth-style, dividing ramparts. Two massive walls of stone emerged from the ground around Kakuzu, cutting him off from the other three members of Akatsuki. It would be little trouble to convert the walls to rubble, but Kakuzu saw what the Leaf Ninja were trying to do. Not that it would help them. If anything, separating the Akatsuki members just allowed them to not worry about hurting each other. In preparation for actual combat, Kakuzu discarded his Akatsuki cloak. He scowled, not that anyone could see it through his mask, when he saw the four ninja in front of him, none of whom he recognized. Which meant they weren't worth anything. The Hyuga's eyes might have been worth something if he wasn't a member of the branch family, which was unlikely, and the others were likely Chunin. This was both good news and bad news. Bad because he wouldn't be making a profit on these brats, but good because he didn't have to leave the bodies in a recognizable condition to collect his money. Earth-style, dividing ramparts. Naruto should have known that the Leaf would have this kind of thing up their sleeve. Trying to separate them, honestly. Their plan became even more apparent when he sensed the four chakra signatures behind him. He recognized two of them from when he had first tried to get his hands on the Nine Tails, and while he had yet to have name to put to the third, his chakra was clearly that of an experienced Jonin. Kakashi jumped off a perch atop the intersecting walls to join his companions, Sharingan revealed for the world to see. So you're aiming to stall the others and take me out quickly. Without my partner, I'll be vulnerable, and you likely have some kind of chakra suppression seal to counteract my Sage mode, yes? Naruto allowed himself to revel in the correctness of his hunches. Kakashi and the others seemed slightly taken aback at the nonchalant manner in which he dissected their plan. Well, let me tell you why that won't work. Last time we fought, I was using less than a third of my full power. Unless your suppression seal can stop a tailed beast, it won't even faze me. But you don't believe me, do you? Then allow me to show you just how outclassed you are. Naruto flared his chakra, concentrating it until it became visible to the naked eye as a green aura around his body. The ground cracked from the sheer weight of the massive amounts of Sage chakra. Kakashi's Sharingan narrowed dangerously, and his determination inspired the other three to hold their ground. Seeing his ploy to unnerve his opponents had worked, Naruto allowed his chakra to calm down into the calm river it usually was. Still, it won't stop you from trying, and it won't stop me from killing you. Don't worry, I'll be sure not to maim your bodies too badly. It doesn't matter how potent your chakra is. Naruto raised an eyebrow at the green-clad Jonin that had spoken and pointed at him, rather dramatically. You cannot prevail against us, and it makes me sad to tell you why. Sure enough, the black-haired man had rivers of tears rolling down his cheeks. If he wasn't preparing to kill them, Naruto would have found the sight hilarious. You have lost your springtime of youth. The words were said like Naruto was being accused of a crime worse than murder. Fortunately, the other three Leaf Ninja didn't seem to share their comrades' sentiments. What? Naruto honestly couldn't contain his curiosity, and he was sure he would regret it. Your springtime of youth. To see a young man such as yourself committing such detestable acts at a tender age without remorse. Naruto was right, he regretted asking. You should be enjoying these days of uncatchable youth while you can, not killing and stealing. I shall give you one last chance to repent, before I must cut your youth short. These acts may be detestable to you, but they secure my place in the world Akatsuki will create. This system of war and hatred will come into direct conflict with Akatsuki, and I've just chosen the winning side. It's as simple as that. Argued Naruto. Now if you're done blubbering over an enemy, can we begin? If you are truly set on this path to destruction, I shall make sure that you cannot be guilty about all of the pain you will cause. First gate, open. The Jonin then simply disappeared. Naruto could track him the whole way, but he was taken by surprise by the swiftness of the attack, and so took a solid kick to the bottom of his chin that sent him straight upwards. Wind style, Hurricane Bomb. The copy ninja earned his nickname with yet another jutsu that he most certainly hadn't invented himself. The blast of wind was blunt, but it had a powerful velocity behind it that wasn't possible with sharp wind. Naruto was sent back to Earth almost as fast as he had been sent away from it, and landed with a plume of dust. Demonic Illusion, Crimson Leaf Dream. A flurry of red leaves came from seemingly nowhere around Naruto. Kurenai's hand emerged from each one, stabbing at Naruto with over 100. Kunai. A brief burst of Sage chakra shattered the technique with little difficulty, though the return to the real world had its own problems. Flying Swallow, Single Line. In a burst of speed, Asuma went from one side of a slightly disoriented Naruto to the other, with no apparent effect. Until a second later, when the ground next to the Akatsuki member practically exploded, leaving a crescent-shaped cut of massive size in the ground. The new holes in his Akatsuki cloak were a testament to the effectiveness of the combo by the Jonin that would have been grievous overkill on any normal ninja. Unfortunately for them, Naruto was anything but a normal ninja. Sage art, heartening. It was a shameless copy of Kakuzu's signature earth style, with some sage chakra for added potency, but it served its purpose. Naruto's skin returned to its normal color as he faced the Leaf Jonin. Well, that was a bit of a bore. Is it my turn yet? Team 8, plus Sasuke, faced down the only girl of the Akatsuki group. Or rather, they faced up, since Sasuke was the only one of their group that could fly. Deidara looked as confident as an S-rank ninja deserved to look, and decided to taunt the little brats before killing them mercilessly. "You could just leave, I'm a reasonable lady, yeah," she said flippantly, feigning a sudden interest in her fingernails. "We're only interested in the Jinchuriki. Itachi's little bro has to live though, otherwise I have to answer to a real Uchiha genius. Nothing saying I can't give a good beating though." Deidara leaned forward, offering a mocking smirk to the younger Uchiha, who scowled back. "It's been bothering me for a while now. Why does Itachi want me alive?" asked Sasuke from atop his hawk. "It isn't that he wants you alive, he wants to be the one to kill you," replied Deidara, unbelieving that her opponents were just giving her time to mold her clay. "As for why, your guess is as good as mine. My guess is it has something to do with those eyes of yours, or rather, what they might become." Sasuke's Sharingan narrowed at the obvious reference to Itachi's Mangekyo Sharingan. Surprisingly though, it was Shino who broke the tense silence. "We should begin combat now." "Why, you ask?" "Because she is clearly stalling for time, presumably to prepare the bombs we've heard about." Deidara leapt off of her bird suddenly, and quickly dashed at Sasuke's hawk. With no time to respond to the surprise attack, Sasuke also departed his mount, dismissing it before its explosive counterpart could kill it. Deidara landed heavily, stood up, and dusted herself off before speaking. Was it that obvious? Despite being found out, Deidara's confident grin never left her face. "One thing though. You assume I wasn't already prepared?" Deidara's left hand formed a half ram seal and the ground beneath Shino